And I think we are live or, attempting to. There's a tab that's like loading and it looks like it's like going live. So, like,
Mhm.
to the best of my ability, I think we are. And
Mhm.
this week we are going to be talking about, other than The Bachelorette, we're going to be talking about the kind of the two things that we watched slash read this week. For me, it was watching. For Kate, it was reading, which are The Flight Attendant and Bridgerton. So for you, you've been reading the book series. You talked about it a little bit last week, and you were just starting on book two, I believe, last week. So I'm really excited to hear your progression through the journey. I was just asking her before we went live. I actually didn't know who wrote it, and it's Julia Quinn, and I've read some books by her, I think, but um, I'm excited to read these, I think, after I watch the show. So we're going to go into this with me having not read them and with Kate having read them. And then I will take the wheel after that and pitch to Kate why she should watch Flight Attendant. And Flight Attendant, I'm current on, and I think there's only one more episode left in the season, which will air tomorrow, and it's the Kaylee Cuoco show on HBO. And if I sound like this, it's because I've been sneezing because I'm in a really dusty room. So, without further ado, I'm going to have Kate take it away. There we go. I've posted a picture down there that came up when I searched Bridgerton, but I don't actually know like 80 of the characters, who's in it, who is pictured here. So I would love for you, in addition to pitching it, to tell me who am I looking at on screen right now because they're very pretty. Is it a ship I should be rooting for? Take it away.
Okay, so how spoiler are we going for this? Are we just gonna explain?
I am so in favor of spoilers. I love spoilers. And if
Okay,
you're not in
great.
favor of Bridgerton spoilers, you're watching a TV show that's like made based on a book. So, like, plus it's not even really spoilers if you're saying what's in the book because they could change it in the TV show.
Yeah, um, yeah, which we're hoping for. We'll get there.
Okay.
So it starts out, and the whole premise is the Bridgertons is this family with 8 kids. The father has passed. Yes, the father has passed, and it's the mom, and she's trying to marry off the kids. Very classic Regency story, okay? But the twist is that, like, at the beginning of every chapter, there's this kind of like intro, and it's an excerpt from Society paper called like Lady Whistledown's papers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, she's just really in the know about all the drama. So the drama and the, uh, I guess, scandal and intrigue is far more on the surface, and everybody knows about it. And
Okay.
they include the papers, especially to know who knows and everything else. Um, and that's like it's kind of like a minor plot point. Everybody's like trying to guess who it is, but nobody knows who it is. That's who. So Julie Andrews is going to do that narration. So she's going to be narrating that part. Um, so the story itself, the first book follows. So in this picture, it's the girl in the white dress. That's the main character. Her name is Daphne.
Okay.
And Daphne
That's the
narrates.
girl in the white dress towards the front with like the
Yes,
reddish hair. Okay,
yes,
cool.
yes. So she is the fourth sibling, and she's the first daughter in the Bridgertons family.
She has three older
And
brothers.
yes, 3 older brothers, and then the 4 younger sisters. Nope, no, sorry. She's, oh my gosh, three younger brothers, older brothers, 3 younger sisters, and a younger brother. Um, and the first book mainly follows Daphne as she meets the man sitting right next to her. Uh, his name is Simon, and Simon is like the main. So Simon is supposed to be made interesting. I say that supposed to be made interesting because he was the long-awaited heir of his parents who couldn't have any kids. It was and he was born with a stutter, and his very mean dad then like abandoned him because he seemed incompetent, and it was a really complex backstory. And he comes
He's the
into
heir to
society,
something, you
and he's like
said?
he's got that like he's the so before the book he's the heir to the dukedom. The beginning of like the current plot line of the story, his dad is dead, so now he's the duke of I can't remember what,
Got it.
but he's the duke.
Okay.
So um it follows him, and because of his stutter, he is very quiet. And so they kind of play on him being quiet. So he's Darcy. I'm like, no, he's not. That's fine. And he is friends with the Bridgerton boys, like the older Bridgerton boys. So they are know each other, and they kind of make a pact. They make the secret courting pact, so that way he won't have to be targeted by. So him and Daphne make that pact, so he won't have to be targeted by matchmaking mothers, and she has always kind of been like the guy's friend because of all her older brothers. She's always just been around the guys, and they always just see her as a friend, and they don't see her as a romantic interest. So their whole thought process is if they court publicly, they will both take advantage of that. She'll become a very romantic eye, and he will get out of the way of some matchmaking for a season. It turns out that twist of fate, they are compromised and they have to get married.
Okay.
That's like halfway through the book.
Like she gets
And
pregnant, or it's just like
it's
found out that they had sex?
well, no, so like they are, so they're her one of her older brothers comes upon them and they're making out in the woods, and it's weird. But he then challenges Simon, and so there's a duel, and she runs in and stops the duel, and they get married. And because a big part of his thing, Simon's thing, was he never wanted to get married, which is a whole long list of like stupid. It's just like, all right, get it together,
He didn't want to
man.
get
Your
married
reasons for
for
not
what? Like, what was his
what?
reason?
So he hates his dad, his
Okay.
dead father, so much that he feels like he needs to get back at him post mortem,
Okay.
and so he feels like the best way to rub it in his face is to end their line, like no longer produce heirs. So he
Okay.
doesn't want to get married because he doesn't want to have kids, and he
Okay.
specifically
Has
doesn't want to
has anybody talked to him about the
marry
fact that those
Daphne.
are two different things?
I well, the big part of
Like,
it
how
is he
old is
also
he?
knows Daphne wants
Has he
kids.
had sex ed at this point? What's the problem? I'm confused.
Oh, listen here, buddy. Well, obviously, you still yes, but at the same time, um, it's Regency, so
I get it. I get it. The best revenge is living a long, happy life, but maybe it's taking him some time to figure that out. I get it.
figure that one out. So they get married, and he does some duplicitous things, and she does even worse things back
Sorry, you were cutting
after
out. Are you
she
saying
finds
they were
out
cheating on
he's
each other?
lying. He doesn't know. So before they get married, he hasn't told her exactly why he doesn't want to get married. He just kind of brushes it over and says he can't have children. And she assumes like it's a biological thing, it's not going to happen.
Got
And
it.
then throughout their marriage, he does things that make it more clear that no, it's just he does not want kids. And she has a right to be mad that he has lied. She does not have a right to do what she does, which is rape him.
Sorry, you said she rapes him?
So, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like,
Took a
it's
dark
it's
turn.
not as clear cut as yeah, it's not as close like that design, but essentially that's what she does. And then they have a falling out, and they live apart for 2 months, and then dramatically both come to the realization, like, to their senses that they've both been acting dumb, and they apologize, and in this like crazy horse chase scene, it was really weird. And then I'm sorry, now we have bunches of kids and the book's over.
Okay. Wait, so the book ends with them having kids? Is that what you said?
So yeah, so there's it's weird. They have two books that basically just tells you down the line they have like 5 kids or something like that. But the
They just
ending
went from
of the
0
book
to
is
60 so fast.
he's
Okay.
realized, yes, he like they reconcile. He understands like the best revenge is living his best life, and um like she is too, and it's fine. And then into book one.
Okay. So that is what
Book
season one will
two
be,
is
right?
much better.
Book two is much
Yes,
better.
my
Okay.
guess is
So the book two characters, are those the ones we're seeing in the background of this picture, or in the background am I like seeing her brothers
it.
or whatever?
So those two are her brothers. Those two
Okay.
men, I would assume. Um, I can't really tell who the other women are, but because I looked up who the male characters were because they were already in it. So the one closest to Daphne but not touching Daphne is Antony.
Okay.
And Antony is the main character in the second book. And his love interest will not be in season one
He's the main.
because
He's the.
their whole thing
Sorry, you
is
were cutting out there. The guy next to Daphne is what now?
the oldest brother. His name's Antony.
Ah, okay.
Antony is the main character of book two.
Got it.
His love interest will not be in season one because her family has not come to town until the beginning of the book.
And we like him
That
and
love
his love
interest is
interest in
named,
book two better than the ship in book one, I assume.
yes. I mean, part of it's just because her name's Kate, and like I feel like we have to stick together, but also they did a better job of making up honestly for 90% of the time. Um, and it was better. There was also no like overly cruddy behavior. Um, it follows a similar storyline to the point that its climax also results in a horse chase.
Oh wow.
So I don't know, yeah, but and they marry like almost in the middle of the book due to a compromise. But this compromise was because of a bee. It's a really the
A bee,
storyline
like
in
the
book two is
insect, like a bee.
insane. Yes, a bee. He is deathly afraid of bees because his father was stung by a bee and died from it.
So
Um,
everybody in this series has daddy issues.
Daddy issues to the max. It's
Got it.
everywhere. It's
Got it.
nonstop. Um, and so he's talking to her. Really, there's a lot of like back and forth and everything else. Originally, he decides he's gonna go after her younger sister. Normally, I don't like that, but it's so minor of a decision, really, in their plot line, and it's more because like she was the like she just made sense. The younger girl did,
Mm-hmm.
but the younger girl had made it very well known that you had to get her older sister's approval. So Kate was kind of in a way being courted by all these men as well. And Antony got kind of this weird obsession with Kate
Okay.
more than he deserves. At one point, they have a house party and they start to become better acquainted. And she did not like him at first because he was a well known raker player, basically. And um, at this party, a lot of things happen that reveal him to be a really great guy, and they become friends. Well, when they were walking through the fields or whatever, and a bee lands on her, and she's just like, "It's a bee. It's no big deal." He is freaking out because his father was stung by a bee and died. So it goes into like a blind panic, chest, and like he gets the bee out and like gets the stinger out, but then he's still freaking out about poison, and he starts to suck out the poison right at the time that the three like biggest gossips, including their two parents, walk by. They are compromised and have to marry.
Wait, where
That
does she get stung? I think the audio cut out then because your audio is kind of cutting in and
like
out. So I'm
on
like,
her chest.
on her chest. Oh, on her chest. Oh, okay. That checks out. That tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
Normally, with the audio
And
cutting out,
I
I would
can't
be
remember.
like, oh, like, I guess, like trying to, fix it or something. But it is actually kind of working for this study, for this story, for the audio to kind of be cutting in and out because I feel like I'm receiving like strips of the story that I'm having to like piece together and it's sort of a mystery. So this is working for me. I don't know if I will go check.
Honestly, you probably are hearing 90% of it correctly. That story it's insane. It's so disjointed. It's crazy.
I love that. And I really like I don't want to say jumping the shark, but just like far-fetched romance themes where it's like, oh, this
Mhm,
crazy thing happened, so now we're forced into this sort of arranged marriage or whatever. I love that. Like if I wanted
mhm.
a boring everyday story, like you see those all the time in real life. Like I like the kind of
Yeah. Well,
melodrama,
it's
I
funny
guess.
because they both, about maybe like a third to a half of the way through, they both have a compromise. They both the men hold a deep daddy issues secret about like how they feel relationships should work, and they
Hmm.
still get married. And then the women are okay with it for a little while until like that problem starts to get really in the way, and then they go, okay, figures yourself out. I'm gonna go back into London where my friends are, and you can figure yourself out all by yourself. And then they come back into town just in time, like have figured it out. And both stories, they have to chase down their new wives in some sort of horse chase, and somebody almost dies. These are the same story. It
And
just, I will say that sequence fits much better with the second book because it has a lot more to do with his fear and like, because his whole thing is he does not want to love his wife because he's afraid he's going to die extremely young, and he thinks it's going to be more painful than it should be. He does not understand like, then live while you can, kind of that concept.
right.
But then of course like seeing his wife, losing his wife in this argument, he's, well, I want to. And then the moment he sees his wife in the car accident, the carriage accident, he's like, oh no, she's dead. And then fully comes to his senses and pulls her out and admits that he loves her. And I'm like, yeah, well, you've loved her the whole time. You just really stubborn about it.
Sounds like a typical sort of Regency element to add to the story, which I love and appreciate. So,
Mhm.
these books, it sounds like they were written a while back since there's like a whole series out already, but they're being adapted by Shonda Rhimes. So, talk to me about what you think that is going to look like because the stories that I'm hearing so far don't sound like exactly Shonda stories. For example, at least two people I've heard so far get a happily ever after. So I'm just like, I'm not getting it.
I and because of the recent revelation that I watched Grey's Anatomy, I honestly think what's probably going to happen is, of course, the main storyline. It's only like 8 episodes, so it's not like crazy amount of time she has to fill per season. But I think they're going to change some of the more problematic story pieces. They're probably going to add some conflict with the secondary characters just to fill it out. They might even add or expand on certain problems that they're having in the book. Because to be honest, it's a pretty quick-paced novel. It's not very long. There's not a
Mhm.
lot of events, and there's not a lot of focus on the secondary characters. So I do think that she has plenty to work with adding. And I mean, there's eight of her. They're all eight. I think it's pretty obvious that she'll probably like have the other family members and the people that are mentioned throughout all these books in the secondary points. Um, I think she might ram up the drama and the suspense of will they, won't they at the
Mhm.
beginning, make it a little more dramatic. Um, I mean, we've already kind of covered the most, like, didn't really mention it, but it's really clear that it's far more uh, PG-13 than, say, a regular Jane Austen novel would be.
Sounds
So,
like it. But the thing is,
yeah.
it doesn't
So there's
sound
that.
more PG-13 than like a typical romance novel. Like, there's
No.
degrees of like amount of sex slash violence and other things, but usually sex in romance novels. You have your Jane Austen ones where there's like literally nothing but like a kiss at the end, if that. And then you have, which like is the highest degree of sexual tension, however. And then you
Yes.
have, and then you have, you know, romance novels that I would say are like still very much on the lower end in terms of physical contact, where they may have a bit more than your typical Jane Austen novel, which only has like a hand touch, but they're not going to have like explicit sex scenes. And then you break into the genre that has any sex scene at all. And in there, I would say you have three levels. You've got the kind where it's like, it's the lowest level that has a sex scene where they may kind of mention it, but they're not going into any like great detail, but they will specifically and directly mention sex scenes. Then you have the middle level where they do go into some detail with sex scenes, but it's not literally like the majority of words in the book. And then at the top, you have those that are just like straight up porn, and most pages on the books are sex scenes or preamble to sex scenes. So, where does this rank on the scale I've loosely defined there?
So I will have to admit, I have not read many modern romance novels,
Okay.
but from how you've described it, I would put it actually like in the middle tier for having sex.
Okay.
It's a lot of plot and there is character growth or anything, but kind of whenever a sex scene happens, you're all of a sudden in it and you're like, well, okay, hello. We were
It's
talking about
detailed
flowers
and
a minute ago,
multiple
and
pages of it.
yeah, now we're getting some detail, and I'm listening. I was like listening to it as an audiobook, and there were people around. I'm like, this is weird. Don't like this.
So like don't listen to it as an audiobook with like my mother or niece around.
Yeah, like it's not super explicit. It's not overly graphic, but it's very much out of nowhere. You have no time to prepare, and it's detailed for the fact that the story itself, while having a fairly good plot, is not that detail oriented, and all of a sudden you're going really detailed,
Yeah.
really fast.
Mm-hmm. Where they're like suddenly every single breath and word and thought is being documented when I didn't ask
Yes,
personally.
I didn't need that.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm excited to watch it. If I like the story, I'm excited to to read the books as well, but I'm definitely sold on watching it. I was sold on watching it before, but I thought it'd be fun to sort of pre-pitch it since tonight's talk will be the last one we'll have before it actually comes out. So the next time we're on here, I will have already marathon the whole thing. I don't know about you. And we'll get to talk about the season one itself. So I'm excited about that. Sorry, my cat is making noise in the background because he's jumping on all the Christmas presents that we got and still haven't wrapped. And there are mini boxes. Okay, so now we've come to the bottom of the hour, and this is where I pitch to you that you should watch Flight Attendant. My camera went out of focus, but that's fine. You didn't. Oh, there we are. We're back. So, Flight Attendant is airing right now on HBO Max. And here's the thing, when I was thinking through, like, oh, what are the things I should highlight and what are the elements I should, kind of explain, I was really struggling to describe the tone. But then I started watching an interview with Kaylee Cuoco and I think it was like Jimmy Kimmel or something, right? And she was talking about the tone of the show and how it was like a very tricky tone to nail and it's very much impossible to describe. And I was like, thank God it's not just me, because I don't really know how to like describe the genre of this. I was even trying to like describe it to somebody the other day and I was like, I don't really know, because it has like these weird elements of like murder mystery, almost like detective noir at times, but also mixed with like comedy and like um how do I say, like the main character is a disaster. Like she's just like a straight up disaster. So here's the plot first, and then we're going to get into the tone. So the plot is that there's a flight attendant who is on a cross globe flight to Thailand, to Bangkok. And she meets a very handsome gentleman who is, I think, from the States. And she is likewise from the States. She's played by Kaylee Cuoco. And they don't necessarily leave the plane together, but they have some romantic interactions on the plane. And he invites her to dinner, and she was like, "No, I wouldn't go to dinner with like a passenger or like whatever." And then she absolutely goes to dinner with a passenger. They have this whole like romantic, sexy night, whatever, where they get like blackout drunk in Bangkok, Thailand, which I just like feel like you just shouldn't do. Like that's just not where you want to get blackout drunk. Like, do you want to get a little tipsy? Yes, but like blackout drunk in Bangkok, Thailand? No, but they do. Anyway, she wakes up the next morning and she looks beautiful in her like silk nightgown and her, tousled blonde hair. The light is streaming through the windows. She's like hungover, but like it was a great night, right? And she stretches, she gets out of bed, and she turns around, and he's there in bed, still laying there, covered in blood because somebody slit his throat. And because she does not remember the night before, she doesn't know who killed him. She doesn't know if she killed him, like Gone Girl stuff. Like, there's that. Anyways, she's trying to piece together the night across the next, several episodes. It's kind of coming to her. And the format of the show, and this is where I feel like it's hard to describe without it sounding like kitschy or something. But the format of the show when she's a detective is that like when she's thinking through things or like trying to piece together clues or whatever, and she's essentially talking to herself, she's seeing visions of the dead guy who was like talking in his friendly, practical tone. So they seem like it's almost like two different people talking to each other. Like he's not being the voice of her talking back to her. It's almost like he's being the voice of reason, but it is her talking to herself. She sees visions of him and she has conversations with him. And that happens throughout like all of the episodes. So she's trying to figure out like what went wrong in his life that got him to the point where his throat was slit in bed while she was next to him. And she's also dealing with her own like mental health issues through it, not mental health over the fact that she's like seeing things, because that's just like part of the format of the show, but mental health in terms of like there's some childhood trauma and substance issues that come up throughout this. And there's a really good like kind of background cast of characters. So she has this friend who's like a lawyer. I think she's like a lawyer in New York, but I don't actually know what city it is. And she has like a boyfriend who's a hacker. So she has some resources at her disposal in terms of like legal resources and like hacking resources or whatever. And she herself is not really ever portrayed to be a resource. Like she's not solving a mystery because she's a good detective. She's not. She's not like portrayed as being good at anything in particular. The FBI is not necessarily always or really like suspecting her of the murder, but like she's involved in it because she's a witness. But due to several other circumstances, like she's sometimes in danger, whatever, throughout the show. But that's like the premise of it. The tone is hard to describe because it's like it's really dark but really funny. So it kind of seems like it's like a dark comedy, but it's not enough of a comedy for me to like say it's a comedy. It's like a dark like a dark detective mystery that just feels like some of the characters are funny. You know what I mean? Like there's like a comedy where the show is a comedy, and then there's like it's not a comedy, but the characters themselves are funny. Does that make sense?
That kind of sounds like I haven't watched the past two seasons, but I watched the first season of Killing Eve. It sounds kind of like that tone.
Very, very similar. Yes. Where like there's these like terrible dark things happening, but like it is also really funny. But I wouldn't like classify Killing Eve as a comedy in a yeah, very similar. It is also,
Okay.
I think it's based on a book. I'm gonna Google that really quick. The Flight Attendant book. It seemed like yes, it is based on a book. Okay, that's what I thought. And the book came out in 2018. Okay, yeah. So it is based on a book. I've not read the book, but I heard that Kaylee Cuoco herself like optioned the book, so like she knew at the time that she was going to be like the producer here, and she's the producer of this, not just a performer in it. And she was in Big Bang Theory, which is like not my favorite show of all time or anything necessarily. And I was kind of concerned that she would be just very similar here. I don't know. It wasn't like my expectations were low. I'm not trying to like I try to be really careful about like hating on any woman in comedy, even if it was a comedy that wasn't my favorite. But like I wasn't going into this being like I'm watching this for Kaylee Cuoco. It was like I'm watching this for because like the plot and the premise was interesting. I'm shocked. My cat is just going ham on a game sitting in the corner called Hues and Cues. Okay, cool, great, fantastic. I wasn't watching because of her, but she does a really, really good job in this. Like she definitely knows her comedic timing, so that brings it. She brings that to it, but she doesn't bring the vibe of like this is a comedy to it. She just, it makes it very watchable how funny she is without them making the situation a comedy. Really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Very pretty show too. Like I like seeing the different cities that they're in. There's a lot of like mystery threads through it. Like there's a side character who is like a woman that she works with who's doing like undercover espionage stuff with I think like the Thailand government, if I remember correctly. It is basically like selling out her husband in that process. There's um there's just like other people like in the flight attendant and flight industry involved in this. It's very good. Watch it.
That sounds good. Just have to find somewhere to get HBO Max.
Right? Story of my life. We will work on that though. Bishop. Do you have to just like run around hog wild like that? He said yes. I checked, and it's a necessity.
It's like, yes, well, I may not be a hog, but I want to be.
Here is the picture. I forgot to put it up. We had Bridgerton up. I can't remember what like airline agency they say that she works for, but she'll sometimes like be a flight attendant for different agencies, and they'll have moments where, she's working for these like kind of shady but luxurious private um like flight agencies or whatever, and then like she normally does like it seems like commercial stuff. So there's just these interesting settings that it's cool to see, and you can kind of tell they've like done their research in creating this world. Well, since we've covered that, we do have a couple minutes. Would you like to hear, perhaps, and even if you don't, I'm gonna go over it anyways, what's going on The
I was about
Bachelorette?
to say, do I really have a choice?
So first, let me just catch you up to
It's just
speed.
like a.
So Bennett and Noah, I forgot Noah's name already, both what got sent home. So this week we had like 4 hours of The Bachelorette total. So essentially like 4 episodes. So you've just got a lot. Bishop is pulling on the cord that's connected to my camera. Honey, do you want to come say hi? He said no, but he's gonna anyway.
No.
Hi. Hi, baby. Hi, honey. Do you want to cuddle? Do you want to be still for 2 seconds? Oh, he said no, he doesn't. Okay, cool. Just checking.
No.
So, um, we had approximately 4 hours of The Bachelorette this week. So on Monday, there was a 2 hour episode. The first hour, she sent Bennett and Noah home. Noah, not Noel. Noel is the guy from the Great British Bake Off. She sent them home, which was like good riddance at that point. Like at the time that Bennett confessed his love to her, I was like, this is fake, but I'm interested. Like this could be interesting to me. But he didn't really sell it enough. She brought him back on for like 2 seconds and then sent him home at the same time that she sent home Noah. So it's like, okay, great. Moving on from that. Then they had the Men Tell All episode, which was really funny because it was like they had to incorporate men that Claire sent home, which was like when they had like the 40-year-old bachelorette or whatever. There was, you may remember, she had that like strip dodgeball thing that like pissed off some of the guys. Anyway, so they brought on the guy who was pissed off about the strip dodgeball thing. And then all the guys hated on him for it. So that was really funny. But they're trying to like incorporate guys that were sent home by two different women and who cared about it, therefore, to two very different degrees. So then they had Bennett talking about how he was crushed. I think it was just his ego that was crushed, but whatever. And they had this guy who was sent home, and I don't know what, like his whole, like he was trying to sell himself as like the sincerity guy of like, my heart is just hurt by this. And like at no point was he feeling her or was she feeling him. Like it was so fake. And I think he was just trying to like convince us that he cared when he didn't. Anyways, so they got rid of all that. And then we moved to the Tuesday episode yesterday. It was a 2 hour episode and it was hometowns. Recall, we're in a pandemic. So there were no hometowns. And I was like, are we really going to have to sit through like Zoom calls with these people's families? Like I can't do it. So they didn't do that. They actually tested all their families in advance, flew them into the La Quinta hotel, whatever thing, resort, I think they're calling it, which is probably generous, in like New Mexico or something. And they flew like their family in, some of their family. It was like two or three people each. And they like tested there, and then they could do their like hometown dates. But in order to give it the vibe of hometown dates, they were supposed to like plan a date during the day with her that was like reflective of their hometown, and then in the evening they would have like a dinner with their family. But like, I don't know if it was just like slashed budgets or sharp turnarounds or what was it, but like they literally had no resources at their disposal, clearly, when planning these hometown dates. For example, some of the things that they ended up doing included, but were not limited to, pretending to take a taxi somewhere to somewhere else in the hotel, like, oh, we brought New York City to you, here's how to like hail a taxi. And they had this whole like 5 minute thing of him like teaching her how to hail a taxi, and the taxi in question that rolled up was literally like a piece of cardboard. Like, I wish I had found a picture of it. Like, it was a literal piece of cardboard that did not even have like wheels attached. Like, they had to literally step into what is so obviously a cardboard box, pick it up themselves, and like walk. And I was like, I can't. And then the other one, he was like from Ohio or something. And he was like, clearly staged. He was like, the thing that reminds me of my hometown is how much we all love carnivals. So I brought the carnival to you. And it was like one of those things where you like throw a dart to hit a balloon and like you get a stuffed animal. But like, I kid you not, like any kindergarten teacher that's ever put on a fair has put together a better piece of equipment. Like, it was just like the budget for this was a rock bottom. Like a rock bottom. They had a dinner date and they never actually showed them eating food. That was another thing. I don't know like where the food, like they would literally just like sit in what was, it appeared to be a hotel lobby or something, or like maybe a hotel meeting room that they brought couches into. And this whole time they've been stuck on this like resort, which is like just very obviously like a flagship hotel for La Quinta, trying to like bring themselves up from being essentially a Motel 8 or whatever. I don't know. And it's like nice, like it's not like a chain or whatever. Like zero, like I'm not bougie. Zero, I'm not trying to sound that way, but like it's a hotel chain resort type of thing. Like there's a pool, okay, whatever. But it was never really like super apparent to me just how low the budget was. Like it was always more apparent to me how quarantined they were. But it was this episode where I was like, oh, you don't have any money. We're like really penny pinch. And a couple episodes ago, they brought in somebody who was they said like one of the most successful bachelorettes, and I think that just means like she's one of the 20 bachelorettes. She's like the only one who actually married somebody and is still married to him or something. And she like helped plan a couple, like basically for like an episode or maybe 2 episodes, she took Chris Harrison's role and was like the host, because Chris Harrison was like, I have to go like check on my family or whatever. I think it was 2 episodes maybe, or maybe it was 4 episodes because it might have been 2 2-hour episodes. Whatever the case was, I was like, oh, that's interesting. What did Chris Harrison plan? Like in the middle of filming The Bachelorette, you're only filming for a couple of weeks. Like surely I think that was like a budget saver of like, we can't afford 4 more episodes of Chris Harrison, so we're bringing in the middle of this like somebody to cover for him. I don't know what's going on, but the money thing was apparent. But let's get to hometowns. So hometowns, we have 4 guys left. I vaguely remember their names and I'm not going to bother to look them up. So basically you have military guy. That's the guy that she's like toxically like into, to the point that we're like almost getting another Claire and Dale situation, but she's just better at hiding it. But this was the guy she was like into, and he has like zero feelings. Then we have what I'm gonna like lovingly refer to, not lovingly, I don't like this guy, refer to as like short old guy, because he's short and old. But more importantly, I don't like his personality. And when asked if he cheated before, he said yes. And then when pressed on the issue, he was like, I kissed somebody while I was still with my seventh grade girlfriend, so it wasn't really cheating. Something about it just felt like a lie to me, and I feel like he's lied a lot. And also, I don't like, on what grounds is he still here if he doesn't have a good personality and he's old and ugly? But I get the sense that Tasha and I don't have the same taste in guys. Anyways, then you have Ivan, and you can tell that he's good because he's one of the only ones I remember the name of. He's really nice, he's really sweet. He had like his brother and his brother's kid there, and he like raised his brother's kid as his own for a while when like his brother was in jail. It's really sweet to like see his bond with his niece. He's the front runner in my opinion, which means he's probably going to be the next one to get cut because I get the sense that Tasha and I don't have the same taste, which is fine, you know? Like she still has a chance with me, so there's that. Did we cover everybody or oh, and then there's this Mr. Robot guy, which I don't remember his name, so that's oh no, his name is Brendan. But he looks like the guy from Mr. Robot. I also don't get why he's still there because A, he was like, I'm scared to propose. Why'd you go on the Bachelorette then? Like, you think it's supposed to get easier? And B, I don't see him having great chemistry with her. So I don't know why he's here, and I don't know why old ugly guy is there who I don't remember his name. But clearly she sees something I don't see, whatever. But the two guys that I think are front runners are the guy that she seems totally into, military guy, and Ivan. Now, she does give Ivan the first rose, which is great, and she kind of pretends to cut military guy. So let's record stop, freeze frame. I guess you're wondering how I got into this scenario. What do you mean she pretends to cut him? She cuts him with no intention of actually sending him home. And here's why and how she does that. So, on their hometown date, for each one, it was all about like some specific element of like being vulnerable about this or connecting with your family or getting over your fears about that or whatever. And with military guy, it was like being more open about your feelings, being open about your feelings, showing your feelings, like telling her how you feel. And what they were really trying to say is like, you are literally showing no feelings, you're showing no affection towards her pretty much in any way. You're not saying like he had not said that he was like falling in love with her or in love with her or anything like that or really anything like it. Like the most he had said was like he cared about her or something like that. Like he just wasn't using like strong feeling terms, which is completely fair. But generally, that gets a guy cut around this time, right? Which is also completely fair. But recall, she's like super, super into him. So when they're meeting with his family, the like his sister or like a family friend or something like that is like talking to him and was like basically like clearly had been prepped by the producers, like so clearly had been prepped by the producers, but she did a really good job of basically getting him to admit or to say that he was in love with Tasha. Of like, you know, you're definitely, you know, like you have butterflies, you smile when you're around her. That's what it being in love is. So you're in love. And he'd be like, I don't know. And she'd be like, no, it's not a question. You're in love. Anyways, she talked him into it, which is fine. She did a really good job. So then after that talk, he and Tasha go outside to like recap after their date. And it is so obviously set up to be the moment where he's supposed to tell her, like, you know, he's just had his brainwashing, really good brainwashing, but brainwashing to be like, you're in love with her, whatever. It's there. He's implanted. It's whatever. They sit outside and he just like does it. Not only does he not say that, he's just like not maintaining good conversation. It's so awkwardly edited. And then Tasha is finally like, okay, it's time for bed. Anything else? You know what? Like he just won't say it. So they have this like big disappointing walk away where he was like, yeah, I just couldn't say it. Whatever. Like we get it. Like, okay. Anyways, so then flash to the rose ceremony and she cuts him. She was like, you know, I'm just not sure if we're on the same page. I'm just not sure if we're feeling the same thing, whatever. She cuts him in the rose ceremony. She's like, but can I walk you out? Now, normally when somebody gets cut after the rose ceremony, the bachelor or bachelorette does not walk them out. Normally they just like go off to the side and the bachelor or bachelorette stays with the people that they kept on. They only walk them out if they're cutting them after like a date or whatever. She walks them outside. There was again this like pretty little bench covered in roses. She's like tearing up, being like, I care about you so much, but I just don't think you feel the same way. Whatever. Just like giving him every opportunity. The scene drags out forever and like clearly actually went forever. Like there was just like a lot of footage of this moment where they are trying to pull eye teeth to get him to say that he's in love with her. He does not say it. So finally, she walks him to the limo. They have it, it's like big and dramatic. She's crying. He's not crying, but I think they like try to get at least light shining in his eyes to make it look like he's tearing up. Like that's how much they're trying to like elicit emotion from this guy, which is clearly like making her more into him. Like she's clearly got a thing for like guys who are not into her. I don't know, whatever. Or like the emotionless type, whatever her thing is, whatever. So he goes off in a limo. And then the second he's in the limo, he's like, I'm in love with her and she's just not going to know. I wonder if she feels the same and just thinks I don't feel the same. I wonder if she likes me and she thinks I don't like her. And I'm like, really? Like you just waited until there's like a door closed and there's 2 feet away to be like, oh, I'm in love with, like, are you or aren't you? Because if you're not, that's fine. Or if you're not, but you're willing to say it anyways, that's fine. But like if you're gonna say it, like a bunch of production people, like who are in like probably uncomfortable shoes, carrying heavy lights, all stood around for probably like an hour for 2 consecutive days, trying to hold a set for you to say it, and you didn't say it. So like, can you pick a lane? Dear God. Anyways, so then they cut to like Tayshia like crying on the bench as he's gone because like obviously he was the one that she wanted. I would like to believe that she has a connection with Ivan because I think Ivan is the best one of what we have left by far. But I'm not convinced that she does. I just think he's like the best guy of what was left. I don't think she's really into any of these last 3. So I feel like they're going to do something where they're going to try to get Ben, the military guy, to come back and like show emotion. And I'm going to lose my mind if they have him like come back to like try to show emotion and he still won't say it. Like I cannot sit through another long scene like that. But that's what you missed on The Bachelorette. Next week is where they meet her family, I think. And or next week is Fantasy Suite Week. There's 2 weeks left. One of them is Fantasy Suite Week, and one of them is when they meet her family. We're down to 3, so I think it's supposed to be Fantasy Suite Week, and then she'll take 2 to meet her family. I think. We'll find out.
I'm glad or happy for you that you enjoy this.
I'm having a great time. They also just released all like 35 something women who are going to be on The Bachelor starting in January. And I'm through the roof excited for that. That's gonna be a time. If I cannot talk you into watching The Bachelorette, which like I get it, we're like late in the season, like you don't want to jump right in. I'm gonna get you to watch The Bachelor. Like it's such a low effort commitment. Like it's so low effort. It's as low effort as the marriages that come out of The Bachelor, which is really low effort. Anyways, we're going to be off next week and the week after, and then I will be back live streaming on what number is that? January 6th. Kate, are you excited for 2021?
It's a new year, but it's gonna be the same. Yay!
Slightly better. We'll see. Well,
Maybe.
2021 is when I will see you again, and we'll be catching up on what we watched over the holidays. So I'm excited.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk to you later.